I like challenges. I mean, many people that I know like challenges, and when I don't have the solution to them, I just don't rest until I find a solution. Something that is, I don't know. I was always like that, and it's just I never stop thinking of it. Never. It's just, and then I mean, it's very satisfying and also very exciting to try and solve a riddle and eventually solve it.
Welcome to 20-Minute Leaders. Just sit back, relax, and learn from the leaders of today. It's a journey. Each one is different, unique, inspiring. Let's get started. This episode is powered by J-Ventures, a community-driven VC fund in Silicon Valley in partnership with Leumitech, sponsored by Homeward Ventures, Hippo Insurance, Upwest Labs, Synergy Global, Hillel at Stanford, Leap, Birthright Excel, Serona Partners, and in media partnership with CTech. Welcome to another episode of 20-Minute Leaders. Today, I'm with Avishay Bransky, Ph.D. and CEO and co-founder of PixCell Medical. And he's an expert in microfluidics with extensive industrial experience in applied physics, software, and systems engineering. He's one of the inventors of the Viscoelastic Focusing technique, cell analysis methods, and the microfluidic-based cartridge. Dr. Bransky holds a BA in physics, a B.Sc in materials engineering, and a Ph.D. in biomedical engineering, all from the Technion Israel Institute of Technology. Get ready for an amazing episode. Thank you, Avishay. Dr. Avishay Bransky, thank you so much for joining me. I know how busy you are, and so I'm incredibly honored to have you here. Thank you.
Thank you. It's my pleasure.
Dr. Avishay, the work that you're doing is a lot of times we're talking about impact on the world and people that are making the world a better place, and often it's a cliche, but you're literally working on technology that in the grand scheme of things is going to make a tremendous impact on billions of lives. You know, the way that you're looking at blood diagnosis, and both in terms of efficiency with speed, but also with quality of care. I think obviously the implications are enormous. With the PhD in biomedical engineering from the Technion, also as a software engineer in a few of the common companies that we know about, and the founder and CEO of both Hemoscreen and PixCell Medical Solutions and Technologies. A lot to uncover here. Dr. Avishay, tell me a little bit about your university years and sort of what guided you both academically and into the entrepreneurial world.
Well, I always liked physics, so I studied physics and material engineering at the Technion. I had two bachelor degrees, and then I went to work at Elsint, which is one of the first high-tech companies in Israel, in the MRI division. But then I very much was attracted to software engineering, so I went back to the Technion and studied computer science, and worked at Qualcomm, which is an international company, as you know. But then again, I felt that I wanted to have a better understanding, more multidisciplinary education. So I got back to the Technion and did my Ph.D. in biomedical engineering, and also did my postdoc there. I mostly researched microfluidics and microelectronics. And there actually is where we discovered this unique phenomena, which the company PixCell Medical technology is based upon.
Mm-hmm. And so share with me a little bit about that.
So we were investigating the deformability of red blood cells. You know, red blood cells are very highly deformable because they need to pass through very narrow constrictions in our sinuses or small blood vessels, and just accidentally we tried a certain fluid which has very unique properties, and flowed the blood cells in this fluid, and all of a sudden we didn't see any cells at all. We didn't understand what happened. We thought something went wrong, and we repeated the experiment again, and again we didn't see any cells. Eventually we recognized the fact that all the cells were perfectly in focus in a single plane, and our microscope was focused in another position, so we didn't see the cells. This later on was termed viscoelastic focusing, which is a new physical phenomena which occurs in microfluidics and causes particles or cells to perfectly align into a single layer plane.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this was remarkable, but it took me probably several months to understand that this could be very helpful in many applications where cells are analyzed and counted. Up to this date, most analyzers that count cells, maybe we'll talk about it later, which are specifically hematology analyzers, but there are many different types of such instruments. They need all the cells to be perfectly focused in order to be able to measure them and analyze them. So it's an inherent requirement for all cell counters. But this unique phenomena, which is again called viscoelastic focusing, is superior to all preceding methods, which are also used today. It makes it very robust. It provides a much more pronounced focus, and eventually yields better results and a better measurement.
Walk me through from the discovery to understanding how this can make an applicative use in the real world. And I'm fascinated by that concept, that you're making a very important discovery, but then there's there's a vast world out there of different applications. And how do you know what to do with this innovation that you've just created?
Well, I guess when you read a lot of papers and you're into this subject, into this world, and you somehow connect the dots and you understand that for many decades, many researchers and developers have tried to reach a better focusing technique, and then you understand that it's very important. The main advantage of our technology or this specific technique is that it enables development and manufacturing of very simple and inexpensive disposables. So bottom line, it makes the test much more accessible, because if you use the traditional techniques, you'll end up with a very large and complex instruments that resides only in labs.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas using viscoelastic focusing, you can use very simple, inexpensive plastic disposables and attain the same level and even better level of focusing.
Right.
However, it's this. I mean, as it's usually the case, is that you discover a specific phenomena, but later on you need to innovate a lot around this. Let's say basic science phenomena, because there's a lot of technology that needs to surround it in order to really reach a product. So it took us over a decade of R&D just to reach the product that we now are commercializing, which has over 30 issued patents, which they have nothing to do with viscoelastic focusing, but they have a lot of innovation in them.
So right before we talk about what PixCell is today and the technology that you're commercializing today, take me up again 30,000 feet in the air, and what's happening in today's world in terms of blood diagnosis, and you're talking about the impact that this can have and the accessibility. What is happening around the world surrounding this issue? Why is this even an issue that we should care about deeply?
That's a good question. I mean, specifically now, I wouldn't say after the COVID, but we're still in the COVID. Diagnostics has brought back the spotlight. I mean, the spotlight has been drawn back to diagnostics, whereas diagnostics was pretty much neglected before. The fact that patients cannot go to the hospitals, they refrain from going to the hospitals, they need to be tested near where they live or even at home. Pop-up units where testing is being done. All this has now made a tremendous growth and interest into quick, simple, accessible diagnostics. I think it goes without saying that people want to monitor their own health more than previously. And why not? The technology is there, so why not make all these important tests which actually monitor your overall health more accessible and closer to you, to the patient.
Right. Now, if you're looking at today's world and PixCell a decade after, working on this technology and innovation, you're mentioning that you have to create a breadth of technology to make this an application, right? The innovation that you had back then. What is that like? Well, I'm curious about this 10-year journey where you and a team are understanding that you have something meaningful in your hand, and now you're working on a variety of different technologies around it to commercialize it into something that can actually be of use, a great use in the world.
Yeah, it's a very long journey, many ups and downs, many challenges, but very satisfying. It is something that I think very few people start from a raw, crude idea or a discovery and eventually reach a functioning and a selling product. It's funny when you look backward, you see that we're totally not in the right direction. We did so many mistakes, and we tried so many different ideas. We have a long list of prototypes that didn't work. And it's also funny to think that when you start, you think that you know what you're doing, and you think that in a year you'll have a solution, but then you find yourself working on and on. But eventually it converges, and you solve dozens and dozens of problems. Sometimes you feel that they are not solvable. But at PixCell, we have developed a totally new technology. All our concepts are totally new. Hematology testing was initially, developed at 1960s, and it still is based on the same principles today. Whereas our product is based on a totally different principle. It is based on machine vision and AI, whereas standard hematology analyzers use laser scattering and electric impedance. We use a disposable cartridge which acts like a small lab, whereas all the current instruments use bulky instruments with large containers that are filled with reagents. Everything is very different, and yet we provide the same results as a full-blown lab instrument, and in most cases more accurately.
Wow, that really is incredible. But from a leadership perspective, you're mentioning that there were times that you had to solve so many problems, but sometimes you reached problems where you weren't sure that they're solvable. Yet, as a leader of this, group and organization, how do you react to those moments? What type of leadership do you require to power through them and reach the end of a 10-year journey?
Definitely, every time you reach an obstacle, you shouldn't give up. You should show everyone else that we will find a way. Sometimes you go back home, you're very frustrated, but then at night you need to be obsessed with it. I must say that if you're not obsessed with it, and if you're obsessed with it, you'll find a way around it. And after so many times that you eventually find a way around it, you know that next time you'll encounter an obstacle, you know that you'll overcome it.
And where's the obsession? Where's the obsession coming for you? Is it from the discovery and the fact that you now want to see through this discovery? Is this something that you've been carrying with you since your Ph.D? Where is this obsession coming from?
I think I like challenges. Many people that I know like challenges, and when I don't have the solution to them, I just don't rest until I find a solution. Something that is, I don't know, I was always like that, and it's just I never stop thinking of it. Never. It's just and then I mean it's very satisfying and also very exciting to try and solve a riddle and eventually solve it. So
Right. And so if you had to choose, really the most meaningful part, as a motivator for you, because you were mentioning that there's a few different aspects here. There's the intrinsic motivation of understanding this is a big problem of accessibility in the world. I want to solve it. I also love solving riddles and problems. I also love, being intellectually stimulated. So I understand the combination of these, but Avishai, who, from your perspective, you've been at this for 10 years. That's insane. What made you stay here for 10 years?
well, every time you climb the hill and then you see another hill. Sometimes it's a mountain. This is really, I'm sure that most entrepreneurs feel the same, and so you even don't have time to rest and enjoy your achievement. You see the next challenge and you just head on to the next challenge. And I mean, if we were to stop somewhere in the middle without having a product that is in the market and getting the feedback from the users, and that is so makes us so much happy, then we won't stop. I mean, until we reach the point where we see our product all over the world and is used everywhere, that is really gratifying because it does help people. We just had recently an installation in Papua New Guinea, which is everybody here was so excited. That's the first time they have, like in the jungle, an instrument, and that is they're able to test the people over there. And also in Australia, remote locations that had no access to these to this very important test. So after so many years, that's very, very gratifying.
And so the long-term impact that the company like PixCell can have on the world, how do you think through the impact, in accordance to the vision that you're outlining for the company?
So as you probably know, we perform the most common blood test, which is the complete blood count. So there are almost 1 billion CBCs tests done in the US alone each year. Yet there's so many places around the world that do not have access to the full CBC. Either they just don't do the test, and this test sometimes can detect blood cancers. So it's not just general health, but also could be very critical. So this is one aspect. Early diagnosis of severe disorders, and also it may help prescribe antibiotics on a more substantiated basis versus not having a CBC done at all, helping fight the antibiotic microbial resistance. Again, the CBC is so basic. Making it so simple and accessible would definitely make a large impact.
And I think that we can only imagine the ripple effect of what you're what you're suggesting here and implying of having access to these tests, because you're just opening a wealth of possibilities for the world. And I just get excited thinking about what's possible out there. Now I'm asking, as a young entrepreneur myself, looking at deep technology and aiming to work on hopefully as meaningful things as you've been working on the last 10 years. If you're looking back at yourself 10 years ago, as you're making these discoveries and you're starting out, what do you know now, 10 years later, that you would tell yourself, and by transitive property to me as a young entrepreneur?
Well, we started from the technology, which is usually it's not advised to start from the technology, but to start from the business. But on the other hand, I learned that many large corporates, start from the business, but they end up not necessarily with a viable product. So there is no real, guidelines to whether to start from bottom up or vice versa. I think that if you start from a good technology, but you also have good business partners that could guide you towards something which is commercially viable, then you're on a good path.
No. Dr. Avishay, I really want to thank you for your time here. But more than the 20 minutes that you've dedicated to me, the 10 plus years that you've dedicated to PixCell and developing technology that at scale can make a tremendous impact on so many billions of lives in the world. And I think that a lot of times I and a lot of people around me, we take for granted the access that we have to simple things like a common blood test, and we forget that the majority of the world is unable to know whether something's going on, even if they really wanted to. For us, it's often an inconvenience of scheduling the appointment, but for them, it's just not having access to an appointment. And so I'm personally inspired by what you do, and thank you for everything. And thank you for inspiring me as a young entrepreneur. So, Toda Dr. Avishay, and stay safe and stay healthy.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Take
you.
care.